You're not my real mother. I don't have to obey you." Those words cut through the dining room like a knife, leaving an unbearable silence in their wake. I stood frozen, wine bottle still tilted toward Judge Ellis's glass, somehow managing not to spill despite my trembling hands. The judge, our family friend of many years, kept his expression neutral, but I caught the slight raise of his eyebrows. Samantha, my 17-year-old stepdaughter, glared at me with such contempt that I almost didn't recognize the girl who had once briefly shown me a glimpse of acceptance. My own daughter, Olivia, slumped in her chair, eyes fixed on her barely touched lasagna. And Daniel, my husband of 3 years, looked as though he might be sick. What none of them knew was that this exact moment, was one I had anticipated, prepared for. Set in motion, Samantha didn't know her. Prepaid credit card had been deactivated that afternoon. She didn't know the locks were being changed as we sat there, and she had no idea that the manila folder sitting beside Judge Robert Ellis's plate contained documentation of exactly who paid for the roof over her head, the food on her plate, and the expensive sneakers on her feet. I carefully set down the wine bottle, took a deep breath, and met her gaze. "You're right. Sam, I'm not your mother." My voice was calm, steadier than I felt. "Which is why your phone, your clothes, your car privileges, and your Wi-Fi access are no longer my responsibility." I turned to the judge. "Robert, would you kindly confirm for everyone here who pays the mortgage on this house?" The shift in the room was palpable. Sam's defiant expression faltered, replaced by uncertainty. But how we reached this breaking point? That's a story 3 years in the making. When I married Daniel Caldwell, I was 38, divorced for 5 years, and genuinely in love. I brought my then 11-year-old daughter, Olivia, into the marriage. Daniel brought Samantha, who was 14 at the time. I had such dreams of blending our families into something beautiful, something whole. I still remember the day Daniel proposed. We were at Riverside Park watching our girls feed ducks at the pond. Olivia had taken to Daniel immediately. He was patient, kind, and brought stability we'd been missing. Sam was more reserved, but I was optimistic. After all, teenagers are complicated. I figured she just needed time. "Lauren," Daniel had said, kneeling before me on the grass, "I want to spend my life with you. I want us to be a family." I said yes without hesitation. The girls hugged awkwardly, but they hugged. I took it as a sign. After the wedding, we moved into my house in Oak Ridge, a quiet suburb with good schools and tree-lined streets. It made the most sense financially. I owned it outright after my parents passed away, while Daniel was still paying off his condo downtown. Besides, my house had 4 bedrooms and a backyard, room to grow together. At first, Samantha's resistance seemed normal. She missed her old neighborhood. She was adjusting to a new school. Her biological mother, Heather, lived just 20 minutes away and had her every other weekend, which created its own complications. I tried everything to make her feel welcome. I painted her room the exact shade of blue she wanted. I drove her to gymnastics practice 3 times a week. I helped with science projects and bought the expensive laptop she insisted she needed for school. I remembered her favorite snacks: salt and vinegar chips, strawberry Pocky sticks, and those weird sour gummy worms that came in the blue package. For a while, I thought things were improving. She started joining us for movie nights. She asked me to help her with French homework. Once, she even showed me pictures from a school dance, seeking my approval on the dress she'd chosen. But then Heather started dating someone new, and everything changed. The comments began small, almost imperceptible. "My mom says this house is kind of old-fashioned. Mom thinks these curtains are tacky. My real mom would let me go to this party." I swallowed my pride and kept trying. When Samantha made the gymnastics team, I was the one who threw her a celebration dinner. When she needed a ride at 11 p.m. because her friend's brother had been drinking, I was the one who drove across town to get her. No questions asked. When she had a panic attack before her first big high school presentation, I was the one who sat with her, teaching her breathing techniques. Daniel noticed the tension but always minimized it. "She's a teenager, Lauren. They're all moody. She'll come around." But as months turned into years, the comments became more pointed, more designed to wound. "I'll wait for my real mom's opinion. You don't get to make decisions about me. Why are you always pretending this is your family?" I documented everything in a journal, not out of malice, but as a way to process my feelings, to try to understand what I could do differently. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe this was normal blended family friction, until the day I found Olivia crying in her room. My sweet, artistic 13-year-old had won a school award for her drawing, a beautiful landscape that had taken her weeks to complete. She'd been so proud, carefully matting and framing it. But when I entered her room, the frame was shattered on the floor. "What happened, sweetie?" I asked, sitting beside her on the bed. Through tears, she told me that Samantha had mocked her drawing in front of friends who were over. She said I only won because the art teacher feels sorry for me. And then she said, Olivia's voice cracked. She said you're so desperate to be part of her family that you forgot you already have one. Something in me hardened that day. Not against Samantha, she was still a child after all, but against the situation. Against the growing toxicity that was affecting my daughter. Against Daniel's perpetual passivity, I confronted Daniel that night after the girls were asleep. "This isn't working," I said. "Sam needs boundaries." "We all do," he sighed, running his hands through his salt and pepper hair. "Heather's been putting ideas in her head. She's jealous that we're happy." "This isn't about Heather," I insisted. "This is about our home, our family, the way Samantha treats Olivia. The way she treats me. She's just acting out," he said. "Give her space. Space wasn't the issue. Boundaries were." And I was beginning to realize that if Daniel wouldn't help establish them, I would have to do it myself. The final straw came 3 days ago. Daniel was away on a business trip. I had asked Samantha, now 17, to please clean up the living room she had trashed while having friends over without permission. Empty pizza boxes, soda cans, and chip bags littered the coffee table and floor. The expensive throw pillows I'd bought were stained with something red, possibly wine. Though Sam was certainly not allowed to drink. "I'll do it later," she mumbled, not looking up from her phone. "I need you to do it now," I said firmly. "We had an agreement about having friends over while your dad is away." She looked up then, her eyes cold. "I don't owe you anything. You're just my dad's wife. You're not my mother and you never will be. The only person I answer to is my real mom." She stood inches from my face, challenging me, testing me, and in that moment I made a decision. I nodded, not in anger, not in pain, but in clarity. That night I removed her from our family phone plan. I called the bank and canceled her prepaid card. I created a new Wi-Fi password. And I called Judge Ellis, who had presided over Daniel's divorce and remained a family friend, to join us for dinner upon Daniel's return. It was time for a reality check. I met Daniel at a parent-teacher conference 4 years ago. I was there for Olivia, he for Samantha. We stood in the hallway outside the 7th grade English classroom, both early, both nervous in that way parents get when they're about to hear evaluations of their children. "First time?" he asked, noticing me checking my watch repeatedly. "No, but Mrs. Abernathy intimidates me," I admitted with a small laugh. "She reminds me of my own English teacher who once made me rewrite a paper 5 times. Let me guess you became an English major after that?" "Architect, actually, but I still triple-check my emails for grammar." He smiled, and I noticed the small crinkles around his eyes, the kind that spoke of laughter and kindness. "Daniel Caldwell," he said, extending his hand. "Lauren Evans," I replied, shaking it. By the time our respective conferences ended, we had agreed to coffee. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner into weekend outings with the girls. He was an accountant, stable, thoughtful, with a dry sense of humor that complemented my more outspoken nature. When he told me about his divorce 3 years prior, he spoke without bitterness. "We wanted different things," he explained. "Heather wanted excitement. I wanted roots." I appreciated his maturity, the way he spoke of his ex-wife without rancor. It seemed like a healthy co-parenting relationship, which was important to me. My own ex-husband had moved to California shortly after our divorce, barely maintaining contact with Olivia despite my encouragement. The first time I met Samantha, she was polite if reserved. She had her father's dark hair and her mother's elegant features, a striking teenager who carried herself with a confidence I admired. She asked thoughtful questions about my work designing sustainable housing, and she seemed especially interested when I mentioned a community center I'd helped design in our city's underserved East Side. "That's really cool," she'd said. "I think architecture that helps people is important." I was so touched by her insight that I showed her some of my sketches, and for an hour, we bonded over drafting tools and design concepts. It was one of the few pure, uncomplicated moments we ever shared. Heather, Sam's mother, was another matter entirely. The first time we met was at Samantha's gymnastics meet. I'd gone to support Sam, sitting beside Daniel while Heather sat a few rows ahead. After Sam's floor routine, which earned an impressive score, Heather approached us. She was wonderful, I said warmly, extending my hand. You must be so proud. Heather looked at my hand, then at me, her eyes sweeping from my sensible flats to my casual blazer. So you're the new one, she said, ignoring my outstretched hand. Sam says you're an architect. How practical. The dismissive tone wasn't lost on me, but I maintained my smile. It's a creative field, too. I'd love to show Samantha some of my designs sometime. I'm sure she has better things to do, Heather replied, before turning exclusively to Daniel to discuss Sam's upcoming schedule. I caught Daniel's apologetic glance, but he said nothing to correct the slight. It was a pattern that would repeat many times over the years. After we married and moved into my house, things were tense but manageable for the first 6 months. The girls shared a bathroom but had their own bedrooms. Olivia, sweet and accommodating, often yielded to Samantha's stronger personality. They weren't best friends, but they coexisted, occasionally finding common ground over a Netflix show or a board game. The shift happened gradually. Heather, who had been dating casually, got into a serious relationship with Xavier, a restaurant owner who traveled frequently and lived a glamorous lifestyle compared to our suburban routine. Suddenly, Sam's weekends with her mother involved trips to New York, designer shopping sprees, and exclusive restaurants. She'd return to our home increasingly disdainful of our family dinners, movie nights, and backyard barbecues. The girl who had once engaged with me over architectural sketches now rolled her eyes when I suggested we visit a new museum exhibit or try a recipe together. Mom's taking me to the Metropolitan next weekend, she'd say. Xavier knows the curator. Or, we had dinner at Le Cirque last night. The chef came out specially to talk to Xavier. I tried not to feel threatened. After all, shouldn't I be happy that Sam had enriching experiences with her mother? But the comparisons became constant, always positioning Heather and Xavier's lifestyle as superior, more cultured, more worthy of Sam's time and respect. Daniel, eager to avoid conflict, often overcompensated by giving in to Sam's increasing demands. When she wanted the latest iPhone while Olivia was still using a basic model, he acquiesced. When she complained about having to do chores that Olivia did without complaint, he made excuses for her. She has gymnastics, he'd say. She's under a lot of pressure. The more Daniel yielded, the more Samantha pushed. And the more Samantha pushed, the more Olivia retreated. My heart broke watching my daughter withdraw. Once outgoing and confident, she became quieter, more careful around Samantha. She stopped inviting friends over, embarrassed by how Sam might behave. She spent more time in her room, drawing or reading, avoiding the common areas of the house. One night, I found her eating dinner alone in the kitchen after Sam had friends over and had taken over the dining room without asking. Why didn't you join them? I asked, sitting beside her. Olivia shrugged. Sam told them this was her house and I was just living here until college. Her voice was flat, resigned. It's easier not to argue. I tried talking to Daniel about it, but he was increasingly defensive. Sam's dealing with a lot, he'd say. Heather fills her head with ideas about how I chose you over them, how I abandoned them for a new family. But that's not true, I protested. You see Sam all the time. You're an involved father. I know that, but Sam is sensitive. And teenagers exaggerate. Daniel, she's bullying Olivia in our own home. He flinched at the word bullying. That's harsh, Lauren. They're sisters now. Sisters fight. They're not fighting. Sam is systematically making Olivia feel unwelcome, and you're allowing it. These conversations never resolved anything. Daniel would promise to talk to Sam, but these talks, if they happened at all, created no lasting change. Meanwhile, I kept trying to reach Samantha to find the thoughtful girl I'd glimpsed when we first met. I invited her to tour my office, thinking she might still have interest in architecture. She came reluctantly, spent the entire time texting, and later told Daniel my workplace was boring and my colleagues losers. I took her shopping for a semi-formal dance, hoping for a bonding experience. She spent the entire time comparing every store unfavorably to places Heather took her in New York. I attended every gymnastics meet, cheering as loudly as any parent, only to have her rush to Heather afterward, ignoring my congratulations. Each rejection stung, but I kept trying. For Daniel. For our family. For the promise I'd made when we married to love his daughter as my own. But as the months passed, As the slights accumulated, as Olivia became more withdrawn, I began to question whether perseverance was really the answer. Maybe what our blended family needed wasn't more patience, but clear boundaries. Not just for Samantha, but for all of us. The evening of the dinner with Judge Ellis, I was nervous but resolute. Daniel had returned from his business trip to find the Wi-Fi password changed and a formal dinner planned. I hadn't told him about canceling Sam's card or removing her from the phone plan. I hadn't mentioned calling the locksmith. "What's going on?" he asked, confused by my uncharacteristic secrecy. "We're having dinner with Robert," I said simply. "He's been wanting to catch up." Daniel looked suspicious but didn't press. He knew Robert Ellis not just as the judge who'd handled his divorce, but as a family friend who'd known the Caldwells for years. When the doorbell rang at precisely 6:30, Judge Ellis stood on our porch in a casual blazer, holding a bottle of wine and a manila folder. "Lauren," he said warmly, embracing me, "it's been too long." "And Daniel? How's the accounting world treating you?" As they chatted, I caught Sam watching from the staircase, her expression wary. She knew Judge Ellis, too. He'd been the one to establish the custody arrangement between her parents. What she didn't know was why he was here tonight, or what was in that folder he casually placed beside his dinner plate. She was about to find out. The table was set with our best dishes, the ones my grandmother had left me, white porcelain with delicate blue flowers. I'd made lasagna, garlic bread, and a Caesar salad. Nothing fancy, just comfort food that everyone usually enjoyed. I wanted this evening to feel normal until it wasn't. Judge Ellis engaged Olivia in conversation about her art, genuinely interested in her recent switch from landscapes to portraits. Daniel seemed relaxed, perhaps believing this was just a social visit after all. Samantha picked at her food, texting under the table despite our no-phones rule. "Sam?" Daniel said gently. "Could you put your phone away, please?" "We have a guest," she sighed dramatically but slipped the phone into her pocket. "Whatever," I cleared my throat. "Sam, why don't you tell Judge Ellis about making the varsity gymnastics team?" "He hasn't seen you compete since you were in junior high." "It's not a big deal," she mumbled, but I could see the pride in her eyes. For all her attitude, gymnastics was the one area where Samantha still sought approval from everyone, not just her mother. "Not a big deal?" Judge Ellis chuckled. "I remember when you couldn't even do a cartwheel without falling over. Now you're on varsity? That's impressive, young lady." A small smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. "Thanks. We have regionals coming up next month. I'd love to come watch," he said sincerely. "Your father used to email me videos of your meets. The progress you've made is remarkable." The conversation flowed surprisingly well for a while. We discussed the judge's recent trip to Portugal, Daniel's promotion at work, Olivia's upcoming art exhibition at school. Even Samantha contributed occasionally, describing a difficult vault she was mastering. Then her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, read the message, and stood up abruptly. "Mom's outside," she announced. "She's taking me shopping for new leotards for regionals." I frowned. "We didn't discuss this, Sam. It's a school night and we have a guest." She rolled her eyes. "It's not like I need your permission. Mom already said it's fine." "Your mother doesn't make decisions about your schedule on weeknights," Daniel interjected, finally stepping up. "That's not the arrangement." "Well, she's already here," Sam insisted, grabbing her jacket from the back of her chair. "And I need these leotards." I set down my fork carefully. "Sam, please sit down. The shopping trip can wait until the weekend." That's when it happened. The moment that would change everything. She turned to me, eyes flashing with contempt. "You're not my real mother." "I don't have to obey you." The room fell silent. Judge Ellis paused mid-sip of his wine. Olivia stared at her plate. Daniel's face drained of color. I rose slowly from my chair, heart pounding but voice steady. "You're right, Sam. I'm not your mother. Which is why your phone, your clothes, your car privileges, and your Wi-Fi access are no longer my responsibility." I turned to the judge. "Robert, would you kindly confirm for everyone here who pays the mortgage on this house?" Judge Ellis glanced at the folder beside his plate, then at Daniel, who looked utterly bewildered. With professional calm, he opened the folder and removed several documents. "According to these records," he began, "Lauren Evans Caldwell is the sole owner of this property at 1542 Maple Avenue. The deed is in her name alone." He flipped to another page. "She also pays the utilities, property taxes, and homeowner's insurance." Sam's defiance wavered. "So, Dad pays for everything else." Judge Ellis continued reviewing the documents. Actually, it appears that while Daniel contributes to groceries and some household expenses, Lauren's income covers approximately 70% of the family's living expenses, including the car you drive. Samantha? That's not true, Sam stammered, looking to her father. Dad, tell him. Daniel cleared his throat. Sam, Lauren, and I have a joint account. We both contribute. But she contributes more, Judge Ellis clarified. Substantially more, particularly since your promotion was only recent. Daniel. I hadn't wanted to embarrass Daniel, but the truth needed to be laid bare. I don't mind supporting our family, Daniel. What I mind is being treated like an unwelcome guest in my own home. Sam stood frozen, her phone buzzing repeatedly in her hand. This is so stupid. Mom's waiting. Actually, I said quietly, if you choose to leave now, you should take some essentials. The locks are being changed tonight. What? Both Sam and Daniel exclaimed simultaneously. I maintained my composure. I'm not throwing you out, Samantha, but I am establishing boundaries. If you want to live in this house, there are rules. If you prefer Heather's parenting style, you're free to live with her full time. You can't do this, Daniel protested. She's my daughter. Yes, she is, I agreed. And you're welcome here too, with the same conditions. Respect isn't optional in my home anymore. Judge Ellis closed his folder. Lauren called me not just as a friend, but because she wanted legal clarity on her rights as a homeowner and step-parent. While she has no legal obligation to support Samantha financially, she has done so generously for years. Sam's phone buzzed again. She looked at it, then at me, confusion replacing defiance. My card isn't working. Mom tried to pay for gas and it was declined. As I said, I've removed financial support until we establish new boundaries. Your father can provide for your needs going forward, or you can ask your mother. Daniel stood up, anger finally breaking through his usual passivity. Lauren, we need to discuss this privately. We've been discussing it privately for 3 years, I replied evenly. It hasn't worked. So now we're discussing it openly, with a witness who understands family law. Olivia, who had been silent throughout, suddenly spoke. Sam has been horrible to me for years, Dad. She tells everyone at school that you guys feel sorry for me because I'm not as pretty or talented as she is. She ruined my art project that won the school prize. She makes me feel like I don't belong in my own house. I reached for my daughter's hand, surprised by her intervention. Olivia, you don't have to— No, I need to say this, she insisted, tears welling in her eyes. I used to have friends over all the time. Now I never do because Sam embarrasses me in front of them. She acts like she owns this place and I'm just visiting. It's not fair, Daniel looked stricken. Why didn't you tell me? Because you never listen, Olivia cried. You only care about what Sam wants. Judge Ellis cleared his throat. Perhaps I should step outside while the family discusses— No, I said firmly. Please stay, Robert. We need a neutral party. Sam's phone buzzed yet again. She answered it this time. Mom, I can't come out right now. Something's happening. She listened for a moment, then thrust the phone at me. She wants to talk to you. I took the phone. Hello, Heather. What the hell is going on? Heather demanded. Why is Samantha's card not working? I'm sitting in a gas station looking like an idiot. We're having a family discussion about boundaries and respect, I replied calmly. Sam can explain when she sees you this weekend. Or sooner, if she decides to stay with you full-time. Full-time? What are you talking about? Just that Sam has a choice to make about where she wants to live and whose rules she's willing to follow. Daniel can fill you in later. I ended the call and handed the phone back to Samantha. You can't just change everything without warning, she said. But her voice had lost its edge. I warned you for 3 years, I countered. Every time I asked for basic respect and was ignored. Every time you undermined my relationship with Olivia. Every time you treated this home, my home, like a hotel where you could behave however you wanted without consequences. Daniel sank back into his chair. Lauren, surely there's a less drastic way to handle this. I've tried less drastic, I said, emotion finally creeping into my voice. I've tried so hard to make this work, Daniel. I've bent over backward to accommodate Sam, to make her feel welcome, to be patient with her feelings about the divorce. But I won't sacrifice Olivia's well-being anymore, and I won't continue to be disrespected in my own home. Judge Ellis spoke up. If I may, Daniel, Lauren's position is reasonable. She's not preventing you from seeing your daughter. She's not even asking Samantha to leave permanently. She's simply establishing that her home has rules and there are consequences for breaking them. Sam looked between her father and me, uncertainty replacing her usual confidence. So what happens now? I took a deep breath. Now you decide. You can stay here following our rules, which include treating everyone in this family with basic respect. Or you can stay with your mother, and we'll work out a visitation schedule for you to see your father. What rules? She asked cautiously. We'll discuss them as a family, if you choose to be part of this family. But they'll include respecting everyone's personal space and belongings, contributing to household chores, following our technology guidelines, and speaking respectfully to everyone, including Olivia and me. The doorbell rang. The locksmith, right on schedule. That would be Kent, I said, standing. He's here to change the locks. As I walked to the door, I heard Samantha ask quietly, Dad, what should I do? For once, I didn't hear Daniel immediately take her side or make excuses. Instead, he said, I think you should consider carefully what kind of relationship you want with your stepsister and stepmother, Samantha. And what kind of person you want to be. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The house felt eerily quiet the next morning. Samantha had chosen to stay with Heather, at least temporarily. She'd packed a bag with essentials, her face a mask of injured dignity as Daniel drove her to her mother's apartment across town. Judge Ellis had left shortly after the locksmith arrived, giving me a supportive squeeze on the shoulder and Daniel a meaningful look. Think about what's best for both girls, he'd said. And for your marriage. Olivia and I sat at the breakfast table, the silence between us comfortable but heavy with the previous night's revelations. Are you okay? I asked, watching her push cereal around her bowl. She nodded slowly. I didn't mean to say all that stuff about Sam, it just came out. Sometimes things need to come out, I said gently. I'm sorry I didn't realize how bad it had gotten for you. You tried, she said with a shrug. Dad just never backed you up. The observation was painfully accurate. I'd spent 3 years trying to build a family while Daniel remained passive, unwilling to risk Samantha's anger by enforcing rules or expectations. Is Sam going to come back? Olivia asked, her voice smaller than her 14 years. I don't know, sweetheart. That's up to her. And your dad. Daniel had returned late last night, anger and confusion warring on his face. We'd had a long, painful conversation in our bedroom, the first truly honest discussion we'd had about our blended family in years. You humiliated me in front of Robert, he'd said, pacing the room, making it sound like I don't provide for my family. That wasn't my intention, I replied, sitting on the edge of our bed. But the financial reality is relevant when Sam acts like I have no authority in this household. You should have talked to me first. I've been talking to you for 3 years, Daniel. You don't listen. He stopped pacing and looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in months. You're serious about this? About making Sam choose? I'm serious about requiring respect from everyone who lives in this house, including you. His face softened slightly. What does that mean? It means I need you to be my partner, to back me up when I set rules, to show Sam that we're a united front, not opponents she can play against each other. He sat beside me, shoulders slumped. Heather was furious. She said, You're trying to cut Sam out of my life. That's not true, and you know it. I want Sam in our lives. I want her to be part of this family. But I can't keep pretending everything is fine when she's hurting Olivia and undermining me at every turn. She's just a kid, Lauren. She's 17, Daniel. Old enough to understand respect. Old enough to face consequences. He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know how to fix this. Neither do I admitted. But I know we can't go back to the way things were. Now, as Olivia and I sat in the morning light, I wondered if our family could be repaired. If Samantha would choose to return under the new boundaries. If Daniel would finally step up as the father and husband we needed him to be. The day passed slowly. I worked from home, designing a new community center while Olivia was at school. Daniel texted that he'd gone straight from work to see Samantha at Heather's. I tried not to feel the sting of his choice. When Olivia returned from school, she seemed lighter somehow. Madison invited me over this weekend, she said, dropping her backpack by the door. Is that okay? Of course so, I replied, surprised. Madison had been Olivia's best friend in elementary school, but they'd drifted apart after Samantha had made some cutting remarks at a sleepover last year. I'm glad you two are hanging out again. Yeah, well, she shrugged. I told her what happened with Sam. She said she always thought Sam was mean but didn't want to say anything because she's my stepsister. I sighed. I wish you'd told me sooner how things were at school. I didn't want to make trouble, she said, grabbing an apple from the fruit bowl. It just seemed easier to keep my school friends and home life separate. The realization of how much Olivia had been silently enduring hit me like a physical blow. My sweet, accommodating daughter had been managing Samantha's behavior not just at home but at school too, navigating complex social dynamics while I remained oblivious. No more keeping things from me, I said firmly. Even if you think it will make trouble. We're a team, Livy. She smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. Okay, Mom. That evening, Daniel returned home after dinner. His face was drawn, exhausted. He dropped his keys on the counter and sank into a kitchen chair. How is she? I asked, placing a cup of coffee in front of him. Confused, angry, embarrassed. He rubbed his face. Heather's not helping. She's telling Sam I've chosen you and Olivia over her. And what are you telling her? He looked up at me. That I love her. That I want her to come home. That I expect her to treat you and Olivia with respect. I felt a flicker of hope. And how did she take that? About as well as you'd expect. He attempted a smile. But I stood my ground. For once, I squeezed his shoulder. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, he warned. Heather's threatening to go back to court to revisit the custody arrangement. She says you've created a hostile environment for Sam. I stiffened. That's ridiculous, I know. Robert does too. He called me today. Said if it comes to that, he'll recommend a colleague who will see through Heather's dramatics, as he put it. Despite everything, I smiled. Judge Ellis had always been fair, even when handling Daniel and Heather's divorce. He'd seen through Heather's attempts to paint Daniel as an uninvolved father then, and he clearly saw through her now. What do you think Sam will decide? I asked. Daniel sighed. I honestly don't know. She's used to getting her way. To everyone catering to her feelings. This is the first time she's faced real consequences. I'm not trying to punish her, Daniel. I just can't keep living like this. I know. He reached for my hand. I should have addressed it sooner. I was so afraid of losing her that I let her behavior slide. I didn't realize what it was doing to Olivia. To you. To us. For the first time in months, I felt like my husband was truly seeing me. Seeing our marriage for what it had become. Two people tiptoeing around a teenager's moods. Sacrificing their own happiness and the well-being of another child in the process. 3 days passed without word from Samantha. Daniel visited her daily, returning with updates that revealed little change in her attitude. Heather was apparently consulting with her lawyer, though Daniel suspected it was more bluster than action. Meanwhile, a strange peace settled over our home. Olivia invited a friend over after school. We ate dinner as a family, smaller but somehow more connected. Daniel and I talked more openly than we had in years, about our marriage, our parenting styles, our hopes for both girls. On the 4th day, as I was preparing dinner, the doorbell rang. Daniel was upstairs showering after his workout. Olivia was setting the table. I opened the door to find Samantha standing on the porch, a duffel bag at her feet. Her usual confidence was gone, replaced by an uncertainty that made her look younger than her 17 years. Hi, she said quietly. Hi, Sam, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. Would you like to come in? She hesitated. Is that okay? The question, so unlike her usual demanding tone, caught me off guard. Of course it's okay. This is your home too, if you want it to be. She picked up her bag and stepped inside, glancing around as if seeing the place for the first time. Olivia appeared in the hallway, freezing when she spotted her stepsister. Hey, Samantha said awkwardly. Hey, Olivia echoed, clutching a handful of silverware. I closed the door, heart racing. I'm making chicken parmesan. There's plenty if you'd like to join us for dinner. Sam nodded. That sounds good. Where should I put my stuff? Your room is exactly as you left it, I assured her. Why don't you take your bag up while I finish cooking? Your father's upstairs. I'm sure he'll be happy to see you. She started toward the stairs, then paused. Lauren, yes? I want to try again, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. If that's okay. I felt something tight in my chest loosen slightly. I'd like that very much, Sam. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even an acknowledgement of her behavior. But it was a beginning. As she disappeared upstairs, Olivia approached me, eyes wide. Is she staying? I think she might be, I said cautiously. How do you feel about that? My daughter considered the question seriously. I guess it depends on if she's going to be different this time. That's fair, I agreed. We'll take it one day at a time. Upstairs, I heard Daniel's exclamation of surprise, followed by muffled conversation. Whatever journey we were about to embark on as a family, it wouldn't be simple. But for the first time in years, I felt hope that we might find our way to something resembling harmony. The dinner that night was quiet, tentative. Sam ate silently, responding to questions with short answers. But she was there. She had chosen to return. And sometimes showing up is the first step toward change. The first week after Samantha's return was like walking on eggshells. We all moved cautiously around each other, overly polite, afraid to disturb the fragile peace that had settled over our home. Daniel seemed torn between relief that his daughter had returned and anxiety about maintaining this precarious new balance. The morning after Sam came back, I sat down with her at the kitchen table while Daniel was at work and Olivia was at school. I placed a sheet of paper between us. These are the house rules, I said simply. Everyone follows them, including your father and me. She scanned the list. 1. Respect everyone's personal space and belongings. Speak respectfully to all family, members, and guests. Complete assigned chores weekly. Follow technology guidelines, no phones at dinner, screens off by 10 p.m. on school nights. Communicate plans in advance. Contribute positively to the family environment. What does number 6 even mean? She asked, some of her old defensiveness creeping back. It means we're all responsible for the emotional atmosphere in this house, I explained. If someone is consistently negative or hostile, it affects everyone. She nodded slowly. And what happens if I break these rules? That depends on which rule and how often. Minor infractions mean loss of privileges, Wi-Fi, car use, spending money. Major or repeated violations could mean you choose to live with your mother. She studied my face. You're serious about this? I am, I confirmed. But Sam, I want to be clear about something. This isn't about punishing you. It's about creating a home where everyone feels safe and valued, including you? She asked, surprising me with her perceptiveness. Including me, I acknowledged. I've spent 3 years trying to make you feel welcome while accepting behavior that was often hurtful. That wasn't good for any of us, not even you. She looked down at the paper again. My mom says you're just jealous of her. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. I have nothing to be jealous of, Sam. Heather is your mother, and she always will be. I'm not trying to replace her. I'm trying to be a stepmother who supports you and helps create a stable home. That's all I've ever wanted. She didn't respond, but I saw something shift in her expression, a flicker of uncertainty, or perhaps recognition. Can I go to my room now? She asked. Of course. Dinner's at 6. Your dad should be home by then. As she walked away, I wondered if I'd gotten through to her at all. At 17, Samantha was caught between childhood and adulthood, struggling with the aftermath of her parents' divorce while navigating the complex dynamics of a blended family. I couldn't expect overnight transformation, but I could hope for small steps. That evening at dinner, something unexpected happened. As we passed dishes around the table, Sam said quietly, "The lasagna was really good the other night." I blinked in surprise. "Thank you. It's my grandmother's recipe. Could you maybe teach me how to make it sometime?" She asked, not meeting my eyes. "For a family science project. We have to prepare a traditional meal." Daniel looked as shocked as I felt. In 3 years, Sam had never once shown interest in cooking with me. "I'd love to," I said, keeping my voice casual despite the surge of hope I felt. "Just let me know when you have time." The next day, Olivia had a friend over after school, Madison, her former best friend who had drifted away during the worst of Sam's behavior. I heard them laughing in Olivia's room as I worked in my home office. The sound was so normal, so right, that I had to stop and savor it. This was what our home should have been all along. When Samantha arrived home from gymnastics practice, she paused outside Olivia's door, hearing the laughter. For a moment, I thought she might barge in with some cutting remark. Instead, she hesitated, then continued to her own room. Progress, small but significant. Later that week, Daniel came home with a small gift bag. "For you," he said, handing it to me. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny house. "What's this for?" I asked, genuinely puzzled. "For being the foundation of this family," he said simply. "For not giving up on us, even when it would have been easier." I slipped the bracelet onto my wrist, touched by the gesture and the recognition it represented. Daniel had always been emotionally reserved, more comfortable showing affection through actions than words. This was his way of acknowledging that he understood the role I'd played and continued to play in holding our family together. "Thank you," I said, reaching for his hand. "We're going to be okay, aren't we?" He squeezed my fingers. "I think we might be." The next hurdle came when Heather requested a meeting with both Daniel and me. She suggested a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. Daniel was anxious, but I agreed immediately. If we were going to move forward as a functional blended family, Heather needed to be part of the conversation. The coffee shop was busy when we arrived, but Heather had secured a corner table. She looked elegant as always, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. I felt underdressed in my simple blouse and jeans, but I reminded myself this wasn't a competition. "Thank you for meeting," I said as we sat down. Heather's smile was tight. "I want to discuss Samantha's living arrangements." Daniel tensed beside me. "She's chosen to come home, Heather. That's her decision." "After being coerced," Heather countered. "After being told she wasn't welcome unless she followed Lauren's rules." "Our family's rules," I corrected gently. "Rules that apply to everyone, including Daniel and me." Heather's eyes narrowed. "You've always wanted to control everything, haven't you? First my house, now my daughter." I took a deep breath. "Your house?" "Heather, I've never lived in your house." "The house Daniel and I bought together," she clarified, anger coloring her voice. "The one you insisted on selling when you got married, so everyone could move into your place." I glanced at Daniel, confused. "That's not what happened. Daniel was living in a condo when we met. You had already moved to your apartment across town." Daniel cleared his throat. "Heather, we've discussed this. The house was sold during our divorce, years before I met Lauren. You chose the apartment because it was closer to your job." Heather waved this away. "The point is, Lauren has been trying to erase me from Sam's life from day one." "That's simply not true," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I've always respected your role as Sam's mother. I've encouraged her relationship with you, made sure she never missed a weekend or holiday with you, even driven her to your place when you couldn't pick her up. Yet now you're setting rules about when she can see me?" "No," I clarified. "The rules are about respect and communication in our household. Sam is free to see you anytime, following the custody arrangement you and Daniel established." Heather leaned forward. "My lawyer thinks we have grounds to revisit that arrangement." Daniel sighed. "Heather, we both know that's not true. Sam is 17. In less than a year, she'll be legally able to make her own decisions about where she lives. Do you really want to spend that time in court battles?" Something flickered across Heather's perfect features. Uncertainty, perhaps, or recognition of the futility of her threat. "I just want what's best for my daughter," she said, her voice softer. "So do we," I assured her. "Sam loves you. Nothing about our household rules changes that. But she needs consistency and boundaries, like all teenagers do." "And you think I don't provide those?" I chose my words carefully. "I think we parent differently, which is natural. But I also think Sam benefits when all the adults in her life support each other, even if we have different approaches." Heather studied me for a long moment. "Xavier and I broke up," she said suddenly. The non sequitur caught me off guard. "I'm sorry to hear that." "He wasn't good with Sam," she admitted. "Too impatient. Too focused on appearances." I nodded, uncertain how to respond. "She's been talking about the rules at your house," Heather continued, surprising me further. "She said it's different now, calmer." "We're trying," Daniel said, reaching for my hand under the table. Heather noticed the gesture and something in her expression softened. "Maybe we all need to try a little harder." She gathered her purse and stood. "I'm not going to fight the custody arrangement, but I want regular updates about how she's doing." "Of course," I agreed quickly. "We can set up weekly calls if you'd like." "That would be acceptable." With a nod, she walked away, her heels clicking on the tile floor. Daniel exhaled slowly. "That went better than expected," I squeezed his hand. "It's a start." Later that evening, as we prepared dinner together, a new ritual we'd established since Sam's return, Daniel brought up something that had been bothering him. "Did you know Heather still thought we sold our old house when I married you?" he asked, chopping vegetables with more force than necessary. I shook my head. "No, but it explains some of her hostility toward me." I don't understand how she could believe that. We sold the house during the divorce, split the proceeds. It was all documented. People remember what supports their narrative, I said gently. For Heather, it's easier to see me as someone who took her life away than to acknowledge that your marriage ended before I came along. He paused, knife hovering over a bell pepper. I never really talked with her about why our marriage failed. It seemed kinder to just say we wanted different things. Maybe she needed more closure than that, I suggested. He nodded slowly. Maybe I did too. It was a moment of insight I hadn't expected from Daniel, who typically avoided emotional introspection. Perhaps the recent upheaval had forced him to examine patterns he'd been ignoring for years. As we continued preparing dinner, I heard Olivia and Sam talking in the living room. Not arguing, not ignoring each other, actually conversing. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was civil, even friendly. Listen to that, I whispered to Daniel. He cocked his head, smiling as he recognized the sound of his daughters getting along. Who would have thought? It's not a miracle, I cautioned. They'll still have their moments. But it's progress, he said. Real progress. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, there was a soft knock at our bedroom door. Daniel was in the shower, so I answered. Samantha stood in the hallway, looking uncertain. Can I ask you something? Of course, I said, surprised. Come in. She hovered near the doorway. My mom said something weird today when I called her. She said she's sorry she made things harder for me here. I kept my expression neutral, wondering how much of her conversation with Heather I should share. What do you think she meant by that? Sam shrugged. I don't know. She never apologizes. Like, ever. People can surprise us sometimes, I offered. Maybe she's realized that all the adults in your life need to work together even when it's difficult. Maybe. She fiddled with the hem of her t-shirt. Anyway, I was wondering if I could still learn to make that lasagna. For my project? I smiled. Absolutely. How about this weekend? That works. She turned to go, then paused. And Lauren? I'm sorry about what I said. At the dinner? About you not being my real mom. The apology, unexpected and sincere, caught me off guard. Thank you, Sam. That means a lot. After she left, I sat on the edge of the bed, processing what had just happened. It wasn't forgiveness for 3 years of hurt. It wasn't an admission that all her behavior had been wrong. But it was an acknowledgement of one specific wound she had inflicted. And that was more than I had ever expected. When Daniel emerged from the bathroom, he found me still sitting there, a small smile on my face. What's that look about? He asked, toweling his hair dry. Progress, I said simply. Real progress. Fall turned to winter, and with the changing seasons came a gradual shift in our household dynamics. The rigid politeness of those first weeks after Sam's return slowly gave way to something more natural. There were still occasional flare-ups moments when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves, but they no longer defined our family life. One Saturday in early December, Sam and I tackled the promised lasagna lesson. The kitchen filled with the aroma of simmering sauce as I showed her how to layer noodles, ricotta, and vegetables. My grandmother used to make this every Sunday, I explained, demonstrating how to spread the cheese mixture evenly. It was our family tradition. Did your mom cook too? Sam asked, carefully mimicking my technique. The question caught me by surprise. In 3 years, Sam had rarely asked about my life before meeting her father. Not really, I admitted. She was brilliant at many things, but cooking wasn't one of them. That's why I cherished those Sundays at my grandmother's house. Sam nodded thoughtfully. My mom doesn't cook either. When I stay with her, we order in or go out. There was no judgment in her voice, just observation. I seized the opportunity to build a bridge. Different families have different strengths, I said. Your mom is amazing at organizing your gymnastics schedule, and she has incredible taste. Those are valuable skills, too. Sam looked up from the lasagna pan, studying my face as if searching for insincerity. Finding none, she offered a small smile. Yeah, she's pretty good at that stuff. As we continued assembling the dish, Sam asked more questions about my family, my childhood, how I became an architect. It was the first real conversation we'd had that wasn't about household logistics or school requirements. By the time we slid the lasagna into the oven, something had shifted between us. Not friendship exactly, but a tentative respect. We should take a picture for your project, I suggested. Reaching for my phone. Oh yeah, she hesitated. Would you mind being in it with me? The assignment is about family traditions. The request, so simple yet so meaningful, made my throat tighten. I'd be honored. We stood side by side next to the oven, flour smudged on our aprons, matching smiles. Daniel, passing through the kitchen, offered to take the photo. My two favorite chefs, he said, his voice warm with approval. Later that night, after the lasagna had been enjoyed and praised by the whole family, I found the photo Daniel had taken. There was something in our posture, in the relaxed set of Sam's shoulders beside me, that captured the change taking place. I sent it to my printer and found a simple frame for it. The next challenge came with the holidays approaching. Traditionally, we spent Christmas Eve and morning at our house. Then Sam went to Heather's for Christmas dinner and stayed through New Year's. But this year, Daniel suggested inviting Heather to join us for Christmas Eve dinner. Are you sure? I asked, uncertain about disrupting our tenuous peace with such a complicated gathering. I think it would be good for Sam, he said. To see that we can all be civil, maybe even friendly, that she doesn't have to choose sides. I had my doubts but agreed to extend the invitation, expecting Heather to decline. To my surprise, she accepted. This should be interesting, Olivia muttered when we announced the plan. Mom, do I have to be nice to her? Yes, you do, I said firmly. This is about making the holidays easier for everyone, especially Sam. Olivia sighed dramatically. Fine, but if she starts saying weird stuff about our house again, I'm going to my room. Deal, I agreed, ruffling her hair. On Christmas Eve, I spent the day cooking and decorating, determined to create a warm, festive atmosphere despite my nerves. Sam helped without being asked, setting the table with our best dishes and arranging poinsettias as centerpieces. Do you think Mom will be okay? She asked as we folded napkins. She gets weird about holidays. We'll make sure she feels welcome, I promised. And if it gets uncomfortable, we can always turn on a Christmas movie. Nothing diffuses tension like Elf. Sam laughed, a genuine laugh that reminded me of the glimpses I'd caught of her lighter side over the years. Good plan. Heather arrived precisely at 6, bearing beautifully wrapped gifts and a store-bought cheesecake. She looked elegant as always, but there was a vulnerability in her expression I hadn't seen before. Thank you for including me, she said as I took her coat. The house looks lovely. We're glad you could join us, I replied, meaning it more than I'd expected to. Sam's been excited all day. Daniel emerged from the kitchen, wearing the Kiss the Cook apron Sam and Olivia had given him as an early Christmas gift. Heather, welcome. Can I get you some wine? The evening progressed with surprising ease. We ate by candlelight, exchanged stories about holidays past, and even laughed together when Daniel burned the dinner rolls, setting off the smoke detector. After dinner, we gathered in the living room to open one gift each, our Christmas Eve tradition. Olivia went first, delighted with the art supplies from her father. Sam received gymnastics gear from Heather. Daniel unwrapped a vintage record from me. Then Heather handed me a small package. It's not much, she said awkwardly, but I wanted to acknowledge everything you do for Sam. Inside was a delicate ornament, a glass house with a heart in the window. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. It's beautiful, I said sincerely. Thank you. My gift to Heather was a framed photo of Sam at her recent gymnastics meet, capturing a perfect dismount. Daniel mentioned you couldn't make it that day, I explained. I thought you might like to have this moment. Heather's composure slipped as she traced her daughter's triumphant smile in the photograph. Thank you, Lauren. The evening ended with everyone gathered around the piano as Olivia played carols she'd been practicing for weeks. Looking around at these faces, Daniel, content and relaxed. Olivia, confident at the keys. Sam, singing along without her usual self-consciousness. And even Heather, tentatively joining in, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Not because everything was perfect, but because we were all trying. As Heather was leaving, she pulled me aside. I've been unfair to you, she said quietly. For years, I shook my head. We were all doing our best in a difficult situation. No, she insisted. I was jealous. Of your house, your career, the way Daniel looks at you. I fed Sam's resentment because it made me feel better about the divorce. The confession stunned me. Heather, You don't need to say anything. I just wanted you to know that I see what you've done for my daughter. The stability you've given her. I'm trying to be better about acknowledging that. Thank you, I said simply. That means a lot. After she left, I found Sam sitting on the stairs, a pensive expression on her face. "Everything okay?" I asked, sitting beside her. "Yeah," she said. "That was actually nice, weird but nice," I smiled. "Families are complicated, especially ours." She twisted a strand of hair around her finger. "Mom told me she talked to you. About, encouraging me to be difficult." I chose my words carefully. "Parents make mistakes, Sam. All of us. Your mom loves you very much." "I know." She looked at me directly. "But that doesn't excuse how I treated you." "Or Olivia?" "No," I agreed. "But you're making different choices now. That's what matters." She nodded, absorbing this. "The thing is, I always knew you were trying. I just didn't want to admit it because then I'd have to admit that maybe the divorce wasn't your fault. That maybe my parents just weren't right for each other." The insight surprised me, coming from someone so young. "That's a mature perspective." "Yeah, well," she shrugged. "Therapy helps." I raised an eyebrow. "You're seeing someone?" "Started last month." "Dad set it up." She stood, stretching. "Don't make a big deal about it, okay? I'm still figuring stuff out." "Not a word," I promised, hiding my smile. Another step forward. As winter melted into spring, our family continued to evolve. Olivia and Sam found common ground in unexpected ways, a shared love for true crime podcasts, a mutual hatred of their math teacher, a joint campaign to convince Daniel and me to adopt a dog. One evening in March, I came home from work to find them huddled together in the living room, giggling over something on Sam's laptop. "What's so funny?" I asked, setting down my briefcase. "We're looking at prom dresses," Olivia explained. "Some of them are ridiculous." "Sam's going to prom?" I asked, surprised she hadn't mentioned it. "Maybe," Sam said, suddenly shy. "Jason Walker asked me." "The diving team captain?" I raised my eyebrows, impressed. "He seems nice." "He is," she hesitated. "I was thinking maybe we could look for dresses this weekend." "All three of us?" The invitation, so casually offered yet so significant, made me smile. "I'd love that. We could make a day of it, shopping, lunch, maybe even manicures." "Mom's super good at finding sales," Olivia informed Sam. "And she'll tell you honestly if something looks bad. Unlike your mother, who thinks everything looks fabulous on you," I added with a laugh. Sam smiled. "That sounds perfect." That Saturday, as we browsed through formal wear in the mall, I watched Sam and Olivia together, the easy way they now interacted, offering opinions, sharing inside jokes. The change from a year ago was remarkable. While Olivia was trying on a dress she insisted would be perfect for Sam, my stepdaughter turned to me. "I wanted to ask you something," she said. Unusually serious. "Of course. Would it be okay if I called you Lauren? Not just hey or nothing, but actually used your name?" The question touched me deeply. Sam had spent years avoiding addressing me directly, as if using my name would somehow acknowledge my place in her life. "I'd like that very much," I said softly. She nodded, relieved. "Good, because Mrs. Caldwell is too formal, but I'm not ready for, I know," I assured her. "And Lauren is perfect." It wasn't mom or even stepmom, but it was my name spoken with respect, and for now that was enough. Mom. "Have you seen my blue earrings? The ones Grandma gave me?" Olivia's voice echoed down the hallway as I put the finishing touches on the graduation cake. I'd spent the morning decorating it with Samantha's school colors and a miniature graduation cap made of fondant. "Check your jewelry box, top left drawer." I called back, carefully piping, "Congratulations, Sam," in silver icing. It was hard to believe we'd reached this milestone. Samantha's high school graduation felt like both an ending and a beginning, the culmination of our journey as a blended family, and the start of her adult life. The past 6 months had brought more changes than I could have imagined that night at the dinner table with Judge Ellis. Samantha had not only maintained her improved behavior, but had genuinely transformed her relationships with all of us. The tension that once filled our home had given way to something I'd almost stopped hoping for: warmth. Daniel appeared in the kitchen doorway, struggling with his tie. "Does this look straight to you?" I smiled, setting down the piping bag. "Come here." I adjusted the knot, smoothing the silk against his chest. "Nervous?" "A little," he admitted. "It's a big day." "She'll be fine," I assured him. "Stanford is lucky to have her." Samantha's acceptance to Stanford's architecture program had been a surprise to everyone except me. I'd noticed her growing interest in my work over the past year, The questions about building designs, the sketches I occasionally found on her desk, her request to tour some of my project sites. When she asked for help with her application portfolio, I'd been honored. I still can't believe she chose architecture, Daniel said, shaking his head in wonder. She never showed any interest before. Sometimes we find our path in unexpected places, I replied, thinking of my own journey to architecture through a high school art teacher who recognized my spatial awareness. Lauren, is this okay? Samantha stood in the doorway, a vision in a simple blue dress that complemented her graduation gown. She'd grown her dark hair out over the past year, and today she'd styled it in loose waves that framed her face beautifully. You look perfect, I said sincerely. Absolutely perfect, she smiled, confidence and vulnerability mingling in her expression. The dress was a good choice? The best choice, I confirmed. Your father and I are so proud of you. Daniel cleared his throat, clearly emotional. So proud, Sam. Don't start crying yet, Dad, she teased. We haven't even left the house. I make no promises, he replied, pulling her into a hug. Olivia bounded down the stairs, already dressed in a floral sundress. At 15, she was blossoming into a poised young woman with her own distinctive style. Found them, she announced, displaying the blue earrings triumphantly. Sam, you look amazing. Thanks, Liv, Samantha replied warmly. You don't look so bad yourself. Their easy rapport still surprised me sometimes. The girls who had once been wary adversaries now borrowed each other's clothes, shared secrets, and defended each other fiercely. Last month, when a classmate had made a cutting remark about Olivia's art project, Samantha had stepped in immediately, her protective instinct reminiscent of an actual older sister. The doorbell rang, and Olivia ran to answer it. It's Grandma and Grandpa Caldwell, she called. Daniel's parents entered, bearing gifts and beaming with pride. They'd been hesitant about our blended family at first, especially when the tensions were high, but had gradually embraced both Olivia and me. There's our graduate, Martha Caldwell exclaimed, enveloping Samantha in a perfumed embrace. Stanford. We're going to need a whole new wardrobe of cardinal red. As more guests arrived, Judge Ellis and his wife, a few of Sam's closest friends, my sister and her family, I found myself stepping back, observing the scene with a full heart. This gathering would have been unimaginable a year ago, when Sam could barely tolerate family dinners. Just as we were preparing to leave for the ceremony, a familiar face appeared at the door. Mom, Samantha exclaimed, rushing to hug Heather. Did you think I'd be late for my daughter's graduation? Heather asked, returning the embrace before stepping back to admire Sam's appearance. You look gorgeous, sweetheart. She turned to me, extending a small gift bag. I brought something for the celebration. Inside was a bottle of champagne, the same brand we'd shared at Christmas Eve. For toasting our graduate, Heather explained. I thought we could both do the honors. That's perfect, I agreed, touched by the gesture and its significance. Over the past months, Heather and I had developed an unexpected rapport. Not friendship exactly, but a mutual respect built on our shared concern for Samantha's well-being. We'd even had coffee a few times, comparing notes on Sam's college preparations and graduation plans. The ceremony itself was a blur of emotion, the procession of graduates in their blue caps and gowns, the principal's speech about futures unfolding, and finally, Samantha crossing the stage to receive her diploma. From our seats, I could see her scanning the audience until she spotted us, her entire family, biological and chosen, standing together and cheering wildly. Later, at the restaurant we'd reserved for the celebration dinner, Judge Ellis raised his glass in a toast. To Samantha, he began, his judicial demeanor softened by genuine affection. When I first met you, you were a little girl with pigtails and a missing front tooth. Now you're a poised young woman about to embark on an exciting new chapter. He paused, glancing around the table. But I'd also like to toast this entire family. In my years on the bench, I've seen many families struggle with the challenges of blending lives and hearts. Few manage it with the grace and perseverance you've shown. Sam caught my eye across the table, a small smile playing at her lips. We both knew exactly what the judge was referencing, that pivotal dinner a year ago when everything had changed. After the meal, as guests mingled and shared stories, Samantha pulled me aside. I have something for you, she said, handing me a small wrapped package. I wanted to give it to you privately. Inside was a silver frame containing a sketch and architectural rendering of a house. Not just any house, but a perfect representation of our home, with remarkable attention to detail. "Sam, this is beautiful," I breathed, taking in the precise lines and thoughtful shading. "Your talent is extraordinary." "Turn it over," she urged. On the back, she'd written, "To Lauren, thank you for building a home where I finally learned to belong. Love, Sam." The simple inscription brought tears to my eyes. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," she replied, her own eyes shining. "Just know that I understand now what you were trying to do all those years. And I'm sorry it took me so long to see it." I pulled her into a hug, overwhelmed by the journey that had brought us to this moment. "I'm so proud of the woman you've become, Sam. So incredibly proud." As we rejoined the celebration, Daniel caught my eye from across the room, raising his glass in a private toast. He'd changed too over the past year, becoming the partner and father I'd always known he could be, finding his voice and his backbone. Later that night, after the guests had departed and Samantha had gone out for a late celebration with friends, Daniel and I sat on the porch swing, enjoying the warm evening air. "We did it," he said quietly, his arm around my shoulders. "We actually made it work." "We did," I agreed, leaning into his embrace. "Though for a while there, I wasn't sure we would." He was silent for a moment. "I should have supported you more from the beginning. Set clearer boundaries with Sam." "We all made mistakes," I said, thinking of my own missteps along the way. "The important thing is that we learned from them." "You know what Judge Ellis said to me tonight?" Daniel asked. "He said watching our family transform has restored his faith in people's capacity to change." I smiled. High praise from a man who's seen it all. He's right, though. A year ago, I couldn't have imagined Sam choosing your profession, or Heather bringing champagne to our celebration, or you and me sitting here planning a future instead of just surviving the present. The observation was profound in its simplicity. We had moved beyond survival mode into something richer, more intentional. The challenge now would be maintaining this hard-won harmony as our family continued to evolve. With Sam heading to college, Olivia navigating high school, and Daniel and I rediscovering our relationship without the constant strain of family conflict. "What are you thinking about?" Daniel asked, noticing my contemplative silence. "The night I changed the locks," I admitted. "How terrified I was that I was destroying our family instead of saving it." He squeezed my hand. "You were braver than I was. You saw what needed to happen and you made it happen." "We all did the work," I corrected gently. "Sam especially." As if summoned by her name, my phone lit up with a text from Samantha. "Having the best night with friends. Home by 1, promise. Thank you for everything today. Love you guys." I showed Daniel the message, both of us pausing at those final words. Sam had become more affectionate over the past year, but declarations of love were still rare and precious. "Love you too," I texted back, adding a heart emoji. Whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, tonight I would savor this moment, this evidence that sometimes, when you stand firm in your worth and hold fast to your boundaries, love doesn't diminish, it transforms. 2 years after that fateful dinner with Judge Ellis, I stood in the backyard, watching as Samantha expertly maneuvered a reluctant Charlie, our golden retriever, into a graduation cap for photos. "Come on, buddy," she coaxed, offering treats while Olivia laughed and snapped pictures. "It's just for a minute." It was Memorial Day weekend, and Sam was home from Stanford for the summer. Her freshman year had been a whirlwind of new experiences, challenging classes, and personal growth. Though we'd missed her terribly, Daniel and I had watched with pride as she embraced college life with the same determination she'd once directed toward resisting our blended family. "Need help?" I called, moving closer to the impromptu photo session. "I think we've got it," Sam replied, finally securing the cap on Charlie's head. "There, Olivia, quick, get the shot before he shakes it off." Olivia, now 16 and increasingly interested in photography, captured the moment just as Charlie decided he'd had enough of academic regalia. "Perfect," she declared, reviewing the image. "This is definitely going in my portfolio." Sam came to stand beside me, watching as Charlie rolled in the grass, free of his scholarly burden. "He's such a good sport." "Unlike some humans I could name," I teased, nudging her shoulder. She laughed, acknowledging the reference to her former self. "Yeah, well, I've learned a few things since then." "A few?" I raised an eyebrow. "Your last email mentioned something about being nominated for a freshman design award." she blushed. It's not that big a deal. Just a small recognition for the community center project. It's a very big deal, I countered. Your professor specifically praised your understanding of how architecture affects human dynamics. That's insight many professionals never develop. She shrugged, still uncomfortable with direct praise despite her accomplishments. I had a good teacher, the simple acknowledgement warmed me. Over the past 2 years, Sam and I had developed a mentoring relationship alongside our family bond. We exchanged ideas about sustainable design, debated the merits of various architectural movements, and occasionally collaborated on small projects during her visits home. Speaking of teaching, she continued, I wanted to talk to you about something. Of course. I've been offered a summer internship at Westlake Design Group. It's a great opportunity, but... She hesitated. It would mean staying in California instead of coming home. I felt a pang of disappointment, but pushed it aside. That's an excellent firm, Sam. Their work on urban renewal is groundbreaking. I know, she agreed. That's why I applied. But I also applied to Evans & Associates here in town. I blinked in surprise. Evans & Associates was my former employer, the firm I'd left 3 years ago to start my own practice focusing on community-centered design. I didn't know you were interested in working locally, I said carefully. Well, I wanted options. She looked at me directly. The thing is, Lauren, I miss home. I miss all of you. And while Westlake is prestigious, I've been thinking that architecture is about more than prestige. It's about creating spaces that matter to people you care about. The sentiment echoed conversations we'd had about my own career, choices leaving a high-profile firm to pursue projects that aligned with my values. I'll support whatever you decide, I assured her. Both opportunities sound wonderful. Actually, she said, a familiar mischievous glint in her eye, I was wondering if there might be a third option. What did you have in mind? An internship with Lauren Evans Design. I hear the principal architect is demanding but fair, and her community-based approach is exactly what I want to learn more about. The proposal caught me completely off guard. My small firm was still growing, with just 2 other architects and a handful of projects in development. Sam, I'd love that, but I want to make sure you're making this choice for the right reasons. Working with family can be complicated. I know, she said seriously. But I've given it a lot of thought. Your work is important, Lauren. You're creating spaces that bring people together, that solve real problems. I want to be part of that. Before I could respond, Daniel emerged from the house carrying a tray of lemonade. What are you two plotting over here? He asked, setting the tray on the patio table. Sam's considering a summer internship with my firm, I explained, still processing the idea. Daniel's eyebrows rose. Really, that would be wonderful. You don't think it's too complicated? Mixing family and work? I asked. He laughed. Lauren, after what we've navigated as a family, a professional collaboration seems pretty straightforward. He had a point. If we could transform from adversaries to allies in our personal lives, surely we could establish healthy boundaries in a work environment. Let me think about it, I told Sam. We'd need to discuss expectations, projects, compensation, all the details that would make this a real professional opportunity for you. Not just a family arrangement, she nodded. That's exactly what I want. A real chance to learn from you as an architect, not just as my stepmom. The distinction was important. A recognition that our relationship had multiple dimensions now. Later that evening, after Samantha had gone out with high school friends and Olivia was video chatting in her room, Daniel and I sat in the kitchen discussing Sam's proposal. I think you should do it, he said, refilling our wine glasses. You've both worked hard to get to this point. Why not enjoy the fruits of that labor? I just don't want to jeopardize our progress, I admitted. What if we disagree about a design decision? What if I have to critique her work? Then you'll handle it the same way you handle everything else, with honesty and respect. He reached for my hand. Lauren, think about where we were 2 years ago and where we are now. That didn't happen by accident. It happened because you had the courage to establish boundaries and the patience to let Sam find her way to them. His faith in me was touching, but I still had reservations. I'll need to talk to my partners. Make sure they're comfortable with the arrangement. Of course, he agreed. Just don't dismiss the idea out of fear. You've both earned this opportunity. The next morning, I was in my home office reviewing plans for a community garden project when Sam knocked on the door. Got a minute? She asked. Always. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. I've been thinking about your internship idea. Me too, she said, surprising me by placing a portfolio on my desk. I wanted to show you some of my recent work, so you can evaluate me as a potential intern, not just as your stepdaughter. I opened the portfolio, impressed by her initiative. Inside were conceptual drawings, project proposals, and detailed renderings that showed remarkable growth since her high school sketches. These are excellent. Sam, I said, studying a particularly innovative design for a student gathering space. Your understanding of how people move through environments has really developed. I had a good foundation, she replied, both in terms of early exposure to architecture and... She paused. And in understanding how physical spaces affect relationships. The insight struck me. Of course, Sam would have a unique perspective on environmental dynamics. She had lived through the transformation of our home from a battleground to a sanctuary. You know, I said slowly, there's a project I've been considering that might be perfect for us to work on together. What kind of project? A family transition center. A place where blended families going through divorce or reunification, could meet in a supportive environment. With spaces designed specifically to ease tension and facilitate connection. Her eyes lit up. That sounds amazing. Is it for a specific client? Not yet, I admitted. It's just an idea I've been developing, based on our own experience. Judge Ellis mentioned that the family court system is desperately in need of better facilities for supervised visitations and family counseling. We could design it together, Sam suggested eagerly. I could research case studies for my summer project, develop preliminary concepts. Her enthusiasm was contagious. I found myself imagining the possibilities, not just for the project itself, but for this new dimension of our relationship. I think that could work, I said, making a decision. If you're serious about the internship, I'd be honored to have you join the firm for the summer. Her smile was radiant. Really? You mean it? I do. But, I added, we'll need to establish clear parameters. At the office, I'm your supervisor, not your stepmom. Your work will be evaluated on its merits, just like any other interns. Absolutely, she agreed quickly. I wouldn't want it any other way. We spent the next hour outlining expectations and possibilities, our shared excitement building with each idea. By the time Olivia poked her head in to announce lunch was ready, we had the beginnings of a plan that felt both professionally sound and personally meaningful. As we joined the rest of the family at the table, I marveled at how far we'd come. The dining room that had once been the site of our most painful confrontation was now filled with easy conversation and genuine laughter. So, Daniel asked, passing the salad bowl, did you two solve all the world's architectural problems this morning? Sam grinned. Not all of them, but we made a start. Lauren's going to let me intern at her firm this summer, she announced to Olivia. We're going to design a family transition center. That sounds cool, Olivia replied. Can I help with the interior colors? Psychology class says color really affects mood. Absolutely, I agreed. We could use your artistic eye. Maybe we could make it a full family project, Daniel suggested. I could review the budget projections. The Caldwell Family Design Team, Sam declared with a laugh. Who would have thought? Indeed, who would have thought that the broken pieces of our blended family would not only heal, but reconfigure into something stronger and more beautiful than before? After lunch, as Sam and Olivia took Charlie for a walk, Daniel helped me clear the table. Happy? He asked, noticing my thoughtful expression. Very, I admitted. It's just sometimes I look at our family now and can hardly believe it's the same one that was falling apart 2 years ago. It's not the same family, he said wisely. We've all changed, grown, learned to see each other more clearly. He was right. The transformation wasn't just in Sam's behavior or in the household atmosphere. It was in all of us, in Daniel's newfound willingness to set boundaries, in Olivia's confidence to express her needs, in my own ability to stand firm in my worth without apologizing for it, and most remarkably, in Samantha's journey from resentful teenager to young woman capable of acknowledging past mistakes and building something new. That evening, as we gathered in the backyard for an impromptu barbecue, I watched Sam teaching Olivia how to set up the new telescope they'd purchased together, a shared interest in astronomy, being yet another surprise bond that had developed between them. Judge Ellis and his wife had joined us, along with my sister's family and, most surprisingly, Heather, who now regularly participated in family celebrations without the tension that had once marked her visits. Quite a family you've built here, Judge Ellis commented, taking the seat beside me. A testament to perseverance, I'd say. And boundaries, I added with a smile. Don't forget those, he chuckled. How could I? That dinner 2 years ago was one of the most memorable meals of my judicial career. Not exactly what I'd planned when I invited you over. No, but necessary. Sometimes people need to see themselves clearly before they can change. He nodded towards Sam, who was now pointing out constellations to her younger cousins. She's become quite an impressive young woman. She has, I agreed. Though the seeds were always there, waiting for the right conditions to grow. As darkness fell, we lit lanterns around the yard, creating pools of golden light in which family members gathered, talking and laughing. Daniel started a small fire in the fire pit, and soon we were roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. Sam eventually made her way to my side, settling into a chair with a contented sigh. This is nice, being home. It's nice having you here, I replied. The house feels more complete. She was quiet for a moment, watching the flames dance. You know, when you changed the locks that night, I was so angry. I thought you were trying to push me out of the family. And now? Now I understand you were actually trying to show me how to be part of one. She turned to face me. You could have given up on me so many times, Lauren. Most people would have. I'm not most people, I said simply. No, you're not, she agreed. You're better. And I'm really glad you're in my life. Not just as an architect or mentor, but as... She hesitated, then finished softly. As my other mom. The words, never spoken before, brought tears to my eyes. Sam, You don't have to say anything, she assured me, echoing my words from her graduation night. I just wanted you to know where I stand now. Across the yard, Daniel caught my eye, raising his glass in a silent toast. Beside him, Olivia was engaged in animated conversation with Heather about a school art project, their former awkwardness replaced by genuine interest. The family we had fought for, suffered for, nearly lost hope, and here it was, gathered around us in all its imperfect glory. I thought of the house drawing Sam had given me at her graduation, now framed in my office. Thank you for building a home where I finally learned to belong. That was the real triumph of our journey, not just surviving as a blended family, but creating a place where everyone truly belonged. Where respect wasn't demanded but freely given. Where boundaries weren't walls but foundations on which trust could be built. As the evening wound down and guests began to depart, I found myself standing on the porch, watching as Sam and Olivia helped Daniel collect the lawn chairs. The three of them moved in easy synchrony, laughing at some shared joke. Heather appeared beside me, following my gaze. They look happy, she observed. They are, I confirmed. We all are, she nodded thoughtfully. You know, I resented you for so long. I was convinced you were trying to replace me in Sam's life. And now? Now I understand there was room for both of us all along. She smiled ruefully. It just took some time to figure out how we all fit together. As she left, I thought about her words. Room for both of us. Room for all of us, with our different strengths and perspectives. The capacity to expand our hearts and our definitions of family that had been the key all along. Later that night, as Daniel and I prepared for bed, he wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. Penny for your thoughts, he murmured. I leaned back against him, savoring the warmth and security of his embrace. I was just thinking about how far we've come, how much we've all grown, especially me, he acknowledged. I needed that wake-up call. Needed to see what my passivity was costing our family. We all needed to change, I said. Me included. I had to learn that setting boundaries isn't just about saying no. It's about making space for yes, for growth, for love that has room to breathe. He turned me in his arms, his expression serious. You saved our family, Lauren. Your courage that night changed everything. I shook my head. We saved it together, all of us. One day at a time. And that was the truth, the lesson we'd all learned through pain and perseverance. Families aren't static entities, but living, breathing organisms that require nurturing, boundaries, and sometimes radical honesty to thrive. The locks I changed that night weren't just on the doors. They were the old patterns that had kept us trapped in cycles of resentment and hurt. By breaking those patterns, we'd unlocked possibilities none of us could have imagined. As I drifted to sleep in Daniel's arms, I thought about the family transition center Sam and I would design together this summer. Perhaps our own journey could help other blended families navigate their challenges. Perhaps the spaces we created could offer others what we had finally found for ourselves: a place to belong, to heal, to grow together. In the end, respect isn't something you inherit. It's something you earn. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for your family is show them exactly where the line is and what happens when they cross it. I didn't lose a daughter that night at the dinner table with Judge Ellis. I found my worth. And in doing so, I helped everyone else find theirs too.